Okay, welcome to Tech Valley Game Space Game Club. There will be some sound effects, apologies. We're going to be discussing Firewatch. If you are listening and have not played Firewatch, we did do transmissions, let's play essentially of Firewatch in 2 sittings, which you should be able to find on our Twitch and maybe YouTube.
YouTube, it's been up on YouTube.
It's YouTube. They're on YouTube. Excellent.
Go to tvjs. I don't know how URLs for YouTube work.
YouTube.com/TechValleyGames.
Okay, that is excellent. Okay. So
We want
we're just going to so we're just going to kind of stall a little bit and introduce ourselves while we're waiting for another member. I guess we'll start.
No,
I'm not going to start because that doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense for the host to start. I do not know what you're talking about.
You've already started.
I am Patrick. I am the one who chose this game at the end of the last game club. Firewatch is a fun and interesting game, and so that's why I chose it. And it's not something we've done before. And it doesn't take 100 hours to get into it, like Terraria or something RPG-like. So, your turn.
Oh, okay. I'm Frederica. I'm Patrick's wife, so I will be teasing him the whole time. And you might notice that on the first part of the TVJS transmissions Firewatch playthrough, I tease him a lot during that too. I don't know, I found it kind of a downer. I mean, I like hiking and the outdoors and stuff, but I did find the story to be kind of depressing, so that's kind of my initial thoughts there. Is you ready, Taro?
Hi, my name is Taro Mia. I played the game as far as I can in one go today. I got up to the part where your character Henry got smacked in the head, blah blah blah, and one of the characters, Delilah, says, "Alright, just hold off at your lookout. Don't call until I do." And that's where it ended.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. Cliffhanger. So, anyways, I actually do know what happens after that because I was participating in part 2 of Transmissions, which is, exactly where that part actually left off and started again. So, good to know that I actually know how it ends. But I got a completely different quote from Delilah on one particularly key scene. So I suspect whatever storyline I have is going to be very different from the actual gameplay that I experienced. Which actually I find it to be a genuinely interesting aspect of the game. There are a couple of these, I feel moments of genius in the game that I particularly like. I do like the fact that it's not very hand-holdy in the sense that a lot of it, there isn't an obvious path that you have to take, and you often have to go back and forth with a couple of scenery notes and so forth that Delilah hints you at to be able to figure out where the next destination is, and I appreciate that too. At least amongst walking simulator genres, it's the Stanley Parable, but there are parts I like, there are parts I thought was more of a trudge and dredge, but that's about it.
Before we go any further, I just want to warn people, I only have enough hard drive space for another 131 hours of recording. So.
This will be a shortened episode.
Scared me there for a second.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm Robert. I played the game last Saturday in one 5 to 6 hour sitting. I kind of enjoyed what I played. I had a couple of, there were a couple of highs, a couple of lows, both with the game, but I think I enjoyed the experience at least once.
I'm Kat. I played the game on Tuesday, I think it was, during the blizzard.
Fantastic.
Finished it up yesterday, and I started because I have so many freaking questions. Nothing adds up. It doesn't add up, I tell you.
We'll be able to help you with that.
Okay, good. Well, I had a feeling I could figure it out with multiple playthroughs. But is it even that kind of a game? Because I genuinely don't know. I feel like they intentionally put lots of threads in it just to mislead you.
We'll talk about that, don't worry.
It was a good game. I really liked it. The art's gorgeous. I love the picture-taking mechanic. I'm going to have so much fun with that, playing it again. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really intrigued to see how it'll change the next time I play it. And yeah, some parts, like Tara was saying, I did find were a bit of a trudge, and I got turned around a lot. I'm awful with navigating in video games in general, so I pretty much... and I have a funny story, but well, I guess we could save that for later, but... yeah, no, great. Good game. Good game.
Jason. I played the game maybe a couple months ago, and I think I have opinions on both sides, liking and disliking it. I enjoyed playing through. I like the visuals. I dislike the story and the storytelling and the emotional manipulating that they did to me.
I see.
Work? Did it work, though?
I guess we'll find out. Right?
Yeah.
I'm John, and I've been eating too many gummy bears already.
You can pass them down here.
Yeah, please.
Don't worry, I'm saving you from yourself.
Gummy bear sickness already. Anyway, I played the later half of the game. As most of it in this... the first time I played the game was during the live stream we did the last couple of weeks. And it's a game that it's been on all my wish list for a while, so I was glad I was able to finally get a chance to play it. I liked a lot of aspects of the game. I kind of agree with Jason a little bit about the manipulation they do. And I don't know, I've got a lot of opinions on that, but I think overall I liked it. But there's a lot of things to hash out, I think.
I'm Jamie. I participated in the first transmissions, but I didn't play. I just watched. And then I watched a Let's Play with no commentary of the latter half later. So I've seen the entire thing. I'm a big fan of the creators, although this is their first game as a studio. Campo Santo is founded in part by a lot of people involved with Idle Thumbs, which I'm a big fan of the website and the podcast and a lot of other stuff that they do. Have a lot of respect for them as writers and creators. And so this game has been on my list to play for quite a while, and I was disappointed, I have to say. Probably partly just because I had it built up. I really had high expectations. I echo some of what's been said. There were parts of the game that I thought were quite strong. The opening, in particular, I think is fantastic. The storytelling... I found the story to be more plot-heavy than I expected it to be. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I also, another thing I liked was I can't speak to the controls of this. I wish I should play it just long enough to see how it feels. But the sense of embodiment seemed really interesting. I like how they kind of kept everything from Henry's perspective, and even the UI with the map and the way you have to navigate and everything about that limited perspective I thought seemed quite effective.
kind of weird aside, I just realized now, because one of the weirder things we had initially was like how to use the walkie-talkie in the game.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with that.
I realized why now they did it that way, because it actually kind of emulates like how you...
Holding down a button.
Yeah, holding down a button, so that makes sense.
I just realized that as you were realizing.
Yeah.
We're talking
me
about
too.
it.
So that's actually kind of cool, but it's also like one of those things of probably could have done away with.
Did make it a bit frustrating to get used to.
Yeah.
Especially since the dialogue like affects what happens later on. Or at least, yeah, it's kind of frustrating.
Okay. So I'm going to loosely guide the conversations. It's just based on previous game clubs. The guiding goes poorly. It's off the rails very easily. So basically, I want to talk about the game from a mechanics point of view, just to start with, and then move on to the plot and what the game is trying to do, and the emotional manipulation, as several of you have mentioned, because it is certainly there. And I really just want to ask why you had trouble with the radio, but I'm not going to. So one of the things I guess I just understand is that the actual main points of the plot of the game are static. No matter how many times you play, it's going to be the same. The dialogue, I think, changes based on your choices in the beginning and then stuff you do through the game. Does anybody think that kind of structure is... I mean, at the end of the day, the game ended up being just a walking dialogue simulator.
I think they did it in a way that a lot of games have a lot of trouble with. Like, I was going to compare it to Telltale games, but I actually haven't played... Like, the last Telltale game I actually played was Sam and Max, Season 3, I think, which was like the one they did before they did Walking Dead and changed their entire formula for several years. But I always like, I liked it a lot better in this regard of there's certain story beats that it's always hitting, but like it's just how the characters reach these points and how do they like react to them is changed. And I mean, I like that because like as a just from like a design perspective, like it's a lot simpler to have like a couple certain paths. I mean, I've seen a lot of games where it's like it's like we're kind of joking about like in the beginning like what you named your dog like would drastically impact like the flow of the game like 3 of the quarters ways in. I've played games where it's been like that where there's like some innocuous like question they ask you and then later on it's like, oh wait, that's like entirely structuring how this whole story goes. I always also felt like some games they do it in a way where it's like they build up a lot, they like present a lot of choices to you very early on, and then the rest of the game is like it kind of feels like
funnels.
It funnels, yeah.
I always wonder if that's like an intentional choice or if the developers just get tired, like fatigued.
I was going to say it's like when you're writing a college essay and it's like you get really excited the first 2 pages, by the 6th one you've just been writing.
Let's get this over with.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I didn't look up to what extent like the like what the choices like map out to, which I was actually kind of curious about. But I did get the impression that was, like I said, it's like more of just an emotional, reaction from the characters rather than like what actual plot.
Yeah, I didn't feel like the plot needed to branch necessarily to be more effective, and I felt like the kind of barrage of choices you get at the very beginning and the opening that I thought was really effective. I mean, yes, they're plot in the sense of like backstory for Henry, but they're mostly like character development to me. It's like you defining Henry's character. And like that to me was quite effective. And I don't know, I think I did kind of classify this game, and my main points of comparison are similar to sort of genres people mentioned, like the walking simulator genre. The closest like comparison I had was Gone Home, which I don't recall like any branching in that either, which I thought was quite effective. Gone Home, but like big difference to me was like both games try to solve like the problem of interacting with an NPC and how like uncanny valley that can get in like slightly different ways. Gone Home, you're exploring an environment where there are no characters, like everything. You're just excavating all these documents and stuff in their house that like reveals their character of these people you never meet. But that still felt like less plotty to me, I guess. When I say it felt like plot driven, that was the main difference. It wasn't necessarily like a structural difference so much as like the story beats, like if they were emphasizing just like learning more about a particular character, or if there's just like really just like a plot point that's gonna like move the machinery on to the next thing. And the characters are just kind of caught up in like these machinations of the larger plot and kind of subsumed to an extent by them.
Yeah, I don't know if I think I agree with you. It wouldn't have really affected this story much, but I recognized in myself a feeling as I saw things happen and realized that I wasn't really having any agency on how things were happening. That I was just watching them unfold, and part of the gameplay was helping turn the pages of the story in a very methodically slow way. I noticed in myself a little disappointment that I knew that I didn't have any agency. Like if I had discovered things a little earlier or in a different way, I could have stopped like the girls from vandalizing anything, or if I could have stopped them from getting lost or whatever happened to them, or found out this mysterious character instead of just letting him do things to me. So there I felt like a little... I mean, I appreciate what they were doing and how they did it, and that played out well. But I missed the sense of agency I could have had in the story development.
It was extremely low.
It is actually interesting you mentioned that, because for all intents and purposes, there's actually quite a lot you can do in the game, whether it be like adopting a turtle or...
Burt Reynolds.
Dropping cinder blocks on top of the turtle, which I totally did.
What is wrong with you?
Did
Nothing.
you do anything to the turtle? Was the turtle okay?
Yes.
Well,
It still had a cinder block on
Carl
top
did
of
get
it.
2 turtles.
I have to say, as like kind as you can try to be to that turtle, and it's just based on watching a Let's Play, like all of Henry's animations are like, it's like a big lumbering oaf,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when you just try to put down the turtle, I don't know if there's a more gentle way, but he like slams it down in the box.
Well, he does that with everything.
It's just
Yeah.
that every drop is the thing.
Not with the turtle. Not with turtle.
Right? No, I thought the
Some
same
respect.
thing. Like, why are you manhandling the turtle?
Did you hear a unique message when you drop the turtle near the river that you find it?
I probably didn't do a lot of Taro-like things because, again, I was
I see.
watching a Let's Play, which was probably taking...
He actually goes, "Go free" or something like that. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's occasional Easter eggs in there that you can find if you do experimentation, such as placing a cinder block on top of a turtle. Nothing happens, by the way.
I have to say, like, as much as I'm critical and probably will continue to be of like the overall structure of the writing and storytelling, like there's some really funny parts. There's some good writing, in there. I thought there was there's one quip in the first half where we're playing through about like, I have to tell you something about this area. It's outside.
That was awesome because he was all freaked out because of the guy.
There's some really funny moments.
I was going to comment that, in a normal video game trope scenario, it's like they have to slowly teach you these new basics, but after you've figured out everything, they kind of let you have it. Whereas, Firewatch still has that beginning portion where it's all about trying to learn all the small perks and all the random buttons that you have to push for very specific, for like oddly context-specific actions. But then after a while, like it doesn't, the world does open up progressively, but the number of actions that you feel like you can do doesn't quite change as much. So, like, sure, you can pull a flashlight on at one point, but that amounts to absolutely zero in almost every context except for this one specific scene kind of thing. So,
Really?
yeah, I mean, it's mainly meant for caves and any sort of night scenes anyways.
Mm.
So, when you think of it that way, like, I think Jace is right in the sense that it doesn't necessarily feel like a normal game per se, and especially if you're coming from that perspective, I can see why anyone would be disappointed in being like, oh, I can do a whole lot of things now. I can run, I can pull up a map, I can look at a compass, I can place cinder blocks on top of turtles, but nothing else really opens up after that. There seems to be, none of those skills, except placing cinder blocks on top of turtles. None of those skills really, only slightly further you to your goal in, very brief spurts of moments where the situation requires it, but, it's so rare that it just doesn't feel like... It feels like just randomly added padding.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily expecting more agency. As I was saying,
right?
And not I'll probably be belaboring this comparison, but Gone Home really was on my mind a lot while playing this, and in Gone Home, there's definitely a fairly linear. There's a linear story for sure that you're going to go through, but the level design also has it has these kind of additional documents and things you can go off the main path to find, and each of those are they tend to be more character building things, which is the game's emphasis. Whereas here, to the extent that there were optional things, they kind of they all led to very similar scenarios to me. The pattern of it started to bother me, and it's something actually that's shared by the main story structure as well, which is so many things just because of the nature of the scenario, you find something, you come across it, and you have to report it. Mm-hmm. So you're often rather than it being character building, it's the same types of reactions that Henry's having every time, and just it's relaying stuff that we already know. It's repeating it, but it's kind of felt just reinforcing for people who didn't want to read anything or whatever. And it just, I don't know, it got irksome to me because it felt very redundant in some ways, and it just didn't feel that's what made it feel more plotty to me, despite the fact that if we were to say what the main plot points are, there aren't really that many, I guess. But it was just each new thing just leads to an exchange that doesn't teach me anything new about the characters, beyond just a new thing about the situation they're in, and then they swear back and forth about it, whoa, fucking shit, that's crazy, I know, and then it's on to the next one. So I don't know.
Right. It's actually funny, you can kind of trigger those in the middle of a particularly, focused moment where they're oh no, what's going on? Right. And then it's hey, I see a valley over there.
Total emotional disconnect.
Yeah.
Those are unfortunate.
I guess when you kind of come in from a perspective of, at least I'm kind of in the same boat with Jamie. I didn't really expect this to be a free ride where you can do anything, I don't know, turn cinder blocks into a motorcycle or whatever, you can do in Gary's mod or something. So, I kept my expectations relatively low and entirely delivered on those specific expectations. So, on the plus side, when it comes to expecting a linear story in regards to expecting the kind of freedom of movement that you have, which is relatively low. I didn't, I thought it was exactly as I was sold on when I initially heard about the game. It's a walking simulator plus a couple of random activities you can do to unlock new pathways, which I do like as a game mechanic, and I do appreciate the fact that they added that in. Yeah.
I mean, but it wasn't the dialogue trees you're talking about opening up different areas of the world at different times, right? Like, for a moment, I thought you were talking about the dialogue trees, because like I didn't feel like it gave me the same reward or agency, if I can again, that like Mass Effect did. Because if I felt like I messed up a Mass Effect dialogue, then I like wouldn't be able to experience this aspect of the game or that aspect of the game. But I sort of knew in Firewatch if I acted upset or not upset, or I worked together with Delilah to conspire about something, or I didn't, or I like swore at somebody or about something, like it didn't really matter, and the story would just keep rolling along.
I was actually really curious. I am really curious to know, like, if you just choose what you think is like the most jerky answer to everything, like how it impacts things, because it seemed like that's like the main opportunity that the game has over something like Gone Home, where you're not interacting in like real time with any characters. It's like that relationship, and I'm curious what people think of that relationship and if you like experimented with it.
Well, I mean, I guess the first game that I really had a lot of fun with branching paths, in as much as they ended up branching, but I'll get to that. The Walking Dead by Telltale, I absolutely loved that game.
It's worth noting, that like a couple of the main writers and like developers of this game are from Telltale and worked on Walking Dead. Yeah.
It does, because like I've been warned by some friends, like, oh my god, I couldn't play it after chapter 2, just so emotionally devastating. And I mean, they weren't wrong. There were some parts that were pretty rough, but I mean, I was crying like a baby at the end. But my boyfriend and I talked, like, we had a lot of fun discussing, like, oh, what if you did this there? Would that character have lived? And I mean, me being a total scrub, like, I went online and I looked up an actual flowchart of where your decisions, and I was really disappointed to learn that, hey, I couldn't have saved that one character, even if I did everything right. They were going to get shot in the head no matter what. And I was like, that's not a consequence. I looked into the chart and there were no real consequences. The same things happened. Like, it was just bothersome. You know?
To be fair, most of these games fall down when you
they
do that.
do. I hate it
just,
every time.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't really played The Walking Dead, full disclosure, but the thing that I have listened to folks from Idle Thumbs, some of the developers talk about some of the things they were trying to achieve with the structure, and it seemed to me, from what I recall them saying, that they were really trying to discourage people from going back or like trying other branches. I think just because they were probably aware of that. So many games have that problem, you know, once you start to like poke at the edge cases and stuff, it kind of all, you know, the illusion doesn't hold up. Right?
Just once I want to play a game where there are actually really different outcomes. I mean, I know Mass Effect is kind of one of those games, but that's more like, I don't think they hit a good balance with that, because it's more like, if you don't buy these ship parts, everyone you care about dies. Like, thanks. Oh boy. You really,
So it sounds like you were disappointed that Firewatch didn't have any repercussions for the decisions you were making?
Yeah. I honestly, when I was playing it, I thought there were repercussions. I was paranoid as hell playing this game. Actually, it felt more like a horror game. I was constantly on edge. I was expecting somebody to body check me. I kept turning around when I heard bushes rustling. I could not, like... Oh, you know that part where you're exploring Wapiti Station?
Yeah.
I actually, at one point, when you pick up that thing and it starts beeping, I didn't know to uncover those papers to find the black box underneath. So I was just kind of stuck. I was like, no, you know what, screw it. I'm leaving, bye. And like, I just walked out all the way back to my fire tower. It's like, I'm gonna keep the evidence here. That's it. I know I can't, but this is what I would do if it was real life. I would just leave. I grabbed plenty of papers. I have enough evidence. I took photos. I don't need to be there anymore.
Yeah. I thought the audio and like the general atmosphere is very effective for creating that movie.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that it shared with Gone Home was, there were a lot of people who mentioned, and I found this to be true, like Gone Home uses the kind of language of like a horror game to set up one set of expectations and mostly like keep you intrigued, keep you like in suspense. And I definitely felt, when people are talking about the emotional manipulation, like that was done here as well. Like it was given the trappings of, a certain type of mystery, and they use that to like keep you going through what's actually like a much more small scale kind of like human story. Definitely in Gone Home, to an extent here, and that was my expectation as well. But I feel I have really mixed feelings about that. As it sounds like some other people do. Like, I feel like to some extent it speaks to a lack of confidence in the writing and in the player, in their willingness to to participate in and have patience with like a smaller scale, like human scale story, to have to like have all these breadcrumbs of like just keep the suspense like amped up, to that level. Yeah, I don't know.
I think there is something to that because as of just recording, like Zelda Breath of the Wild's been out for a couple weeks, and it's kind of getting me thinking about just kind of diverging a little bit. It's kind of interesting to see how Nintendo took this game, and you can really see all the other influences of other games, that got put into it. But the biggest thing I'm noticing is all the games that are directly referencing, mechanically or whatever, are these huge giant open world games. And Breath of the Wild is this huge, probably the biggest one there is. So I think there could be an aspect of that is if you make a game about just having a summer at this little camp, basically I could see I don't know if they fell down this trap, but I feel some developers could feel they want to make this huge, even if it's not physically huge, at least feel there's more emotional, more at stake. Because one thing I didn't like about Gone Home was, and kind of spoilers for Gone, I talked about this a little bit on the stream too, it's spoilers for Gone Home, there's a point at the end where they kind of set it up to make it seem like a satanic ritual gone wrong. I don't know,
I don't know if I had quite that impression, but I know.
There's a point where they're building up suspense, and they kind of set this I don't know. My playthrough of it, there's something where and I don't know. This is also from 3 or 4 years ago when I played it, but there's
they do keep you questioning what's really going on.
Yeah,
the whole time.
I was kind of gleaming more of a if not actually supernatural thing going on, at least belief in the supernatural, weird sacrifice gone wrong sort of thing, but it didn't turn out to actually be that. But I was going to say, it's I kind of felt Firewatch did it in a weirder way where they kind of explicitly said there might be a conspiracy going on, but actually framed it, and then it kind of turned out to be nothing.
And there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time spent on that. I mean, an inordinate amount of time.
That's the thing. Is if you're in that situation, I don't know. Even if you found hard evidence, they did, I feel you could kind of peek at the edges and see something weird go. I don't think actual adults of that age would fall for it, that a setup like that, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think it depends on the adults, honestly.
It depends on what actions you took. Who threw the boombox in the lake? Am I the only one that threw the boombox in the lake?
You are there.
I stole it, took it back to my hideout.
Oh, nice.
Tara held on to that boombox for quite a while.
The girls were mean to me. I was taking their boombox.
Well, I was experimenting with the throw mechanic. I was like, you know what? This is a good opportunity. Yeah. I missed my first shot and it landed on the ground, but second time I got it. And they got really mad.
I was wondering what happened.
I like the music. I was taking them back for that music purpose. I was gonna make a callback to our previous episode of Until Dawn. And also I was gonna nitpick that Legend of Zelda has been out for, I think, less than 2 weeks. So that's less than a couple of weeks.
Whatever.
Anyways.
Technically correct.
It's a nitpick. So where was I? Yes, Until Dawn. There was no butterfly effect, which I really appreciate. If you haven't seen our previous episode on that, we were all discussing about how much we hated the particle effects that would occur when you make an impactful choice. And I was 100% glad that, whatever choices they've given you, they made no such inference as to the significance of it. And in that sense, like, I kind of get where a lot of people are coming from in regards to also like how the strong beginnings starts with, because you're like, oh, you get to kind of shape who Henry is. And that seems to go entirely on the wayside throughout the rest of the game. Like, you could technically form what his personality is, but it also feels a lot like playing the dialogue choices that you get in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, where, like, nothing of consequence happens. You just get to see more clever writing if you happen to be an absolute jerk, and that's about it. And I don't know, to an effect, to an extent, I can kind of appreciate that. In the same way, like, I can not appreciate Until Dawn for trying to put significance in certain thoughts. I can appreciate the fact that, they had at least, they were at least not attempting to say, like, hey, this is a significant decision that you make. Or, like, you get to do whatever you want with this blank character. But at the same time, it does kind of... it does start to pull a strain on a couple of details about Henry, such as, what his voice sounds like. And to the credit of the voice actor, I mean, I think the voice acting is really great, but at the same time, I have created this complete and utter jerk, and then you have the moments where, oh, hey, I'm in the valley, and he's, like, sounding completely normal, like a normal person. You're like,
Friendly, yeah.
That's not exactly the Henry I imagined. I don't know. As a fan of Until Dawn, what do you think?
Okay, well, I had no expectations going into this game at all because I didn't know anything about it. I knew that it won an award 2 weeks ago from Best Story. That's pretty much all I knew. I'd seen pictures of it. The pictures were usually a nice landscape that was very red. And I said, those graphics don't look very good at all. I don't know why this is such a great game. So when I started it up, first thing is you get a bunch of text on your screen, and you have to make a choice. And I thought to myself, is this a text adventure? Because I didn't see that coming. And I'm reading the text adventure. I'm going along with it. Okay, this is the choice I'm going to choose. This is the choice I'm going to choose. You eventually find out that, the wife has early onset dementia, which kind of hit home for me because my maternal grandmother had that the last couple of years of her life. So I was able to relate to that very well. And then it just kind of stopped with the text adventure and suddenly you're in this 3D environment. And I was like, what did any of that just have to do with anything? Because it felt like nothing from that point forward that happened during that text adventure had any relevance on the rest of the game. If there was some sort of indicator, like Until Dawn, that said, you've made a choice that's going to impact the rest of the game, I maybe would have been like, okay, now I understand why that had to do with anything. But it didn't. So I started the game off, and I'm now wandering through what was amazing graphics, and I said, okay, why did they choose that really red-colored screenshot for their Steam page when they could have put something that looked like this? I didn't get it, but I loved the graphics as I was playing it. But the more I played it, I felt like I was just following a path, and that nothing I did had any relevance on the story whatsoever. I mean, like I said, I took the boombox because they were being mean to me. So I took the boombox, I brought it back to my little lookout tower. The following day starts, and the boombox is gone.
Oh, that's good to know.
That
Yes.
sucks.
And I'm like, okay,
They
so...
totally controlled your inventory.
That's so lame. I was able to take their whiskey.
Yeah, I took the whiskey too.
Yeah.
The whiskey came back. But...
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
I saw the whiskey, I grabbed it and was like, put it away for later.
Seriously, a lot of those two beer guzzling jerks leave having a no. Grown up drink whiskey. You don't get it. I get it.
See, the whiskey they let you actually put inside your inventory.
Yeah.
The boombox they didn't. I had to literally carry that thing with me throughout the rest of the map until I got back to my tower. And then I just tossed it into I don't know, I think I might have tossed it on my bed or something. Boom, second day, where's the boombox? It's completely gone.
That's very immersion breaking.
Yeah.
We had, I was going to say, we had that dinosaur.
The dinosaur stuck around.
The dinosaur did stick around.
Oh, you can take
The problem,
Oh.
the problem, which I found out, is that they only store the X and Y coordinates of where you place it, object in the lookout. So it teleported at the floor of wherever you placed it, which was on top of the map finder.
Oh no.
So it may be stuck inside the bed.
Right.
It may have phased through.
It may be somewhere, but wherever it is, it ran out of batteries because it stopped playing.
Oh my god.
So, so I continued along with the game, and then every inch of the way, I felt like I was being guided. Like there was no freedom. There wasn't even an illusion of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just straight path. And even when I found, an axe. I found an axe, and I said, okay, I have an axe now. I'm going back to that cave, and I'm cutting that lock open. It wouldn't let me. The game did not want me to explore the cave just yet. Mm-hmm. So no matter how much that axe should have cut that lock open, it just wouldn't. And I was
That sucks.
yeah. And I was like, all I'm doing at this point is just following this path, and I don't see where any of my choices are making any sort of difference. I mean, all the dialogue that I had with the girl, I answered the way I would answer. I wasn't trying to play the bad guy or necessarily a good guy. I just answered the way I answered. It seemed to turn out okay, but it also didn't feel like it was being directed by the things I was doing. It just felt like this is what they were probably going to say anyways. So I never felt like it was anything more than just A to B to C to D to the end.
As much as, again, I'm kind of like saying it felt very plot heavy to me. Like, it seemed to me that relationship between Henry and Delilah was meant to be like the central aspect of the game somehow in the designer's mind or the writers. And I'm just curious what other people felt about that. Like, when we're talking about how the again, really strong in my opinion, like opening section connects to the rest of the game. To me, it almost felt like the main purpose of it was to like give Henry some backstory. Mm-hmm. Because they wanted to like define this bond and this like growing friendship between Henry and Delilah, and so you'd have like it might be weird if you're like finding out that stuff about Henry for the first time, like when you're divulging it. But like that idea of like you have some things that are like personal information that you probably wouldn't share with just anybody that you're now sharing with Delilah was like it seemed like a pretty effective way of trying to convey that friendship. But overall, again, that's why I wanted more of that. Like, it still ended up feeling a bit undercooked to me, that relationship. And part of it was just because so much time was spent on these other things, like this false conspiracy, like suspense plot and other things that didn't really amount to much.
Yeah.
It is very surreal to play the second half first, then play the first half. Because I know what you guys are talking about, but when I made it to, like, the tent portion, I'm like, oh, interesting. Yeah, they must have planted those or something. It's like, the cover's blown and you're like, yeah, that happened.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting the way they presented or built up your relationship with Delilah. Particularly because of the way I felt they were trying to manipulate me into relating with her. And I think the backstory played an important part in that because it set up that I was in a relationship that was technically, according to the story, like, and which choices you made, like, technically you were still in a relationship, but sort of you were checked out of that relationship and you're sort of spending time away to try and figure stuff out in your head. And so you can't see this person, but you know it's a woman. And statistically, it's a safe bet that given the larger number of heterosexuals in the world, that you're going to be, if you present them with a man and a woman, that they're going to tend to think of them possibly being in a relationship. Mm-hmm. In my mind, how I viewed Henry, I considered him to still be in a relationship with his wife. So I fended off all of Delilah's advances with friendly discourse. Just kind of like, no, that's cool. I just want to be your friend. Like, we're building a friendship on adventures and like difficult situations, and we don't need to have a relationship. We can just be friends as our relationship. And I got frustrated that they kept trying to. It felt like they were trying to prod me into having a relationship with her, and like not having sexting, or like, what would you call radio?
Walkie sexy.
Right? I was like, stop making me try to answer these things. And eventually I gave up and I was like, all right. And I answered a couple questions with like, sure, let's go. And then the response was, no, like, back down away from that. And I was like, see, why did you try to make me do this? It was that sort of emotional manipulation that frustrated me when I wanted it to just be this friendship relationship that developed.
Yeah, that really feels like a missed opportunity to me. Like, that feels like an area where they could have put in some, not branching, like it's, without having, like, I'm very conscious it's like an indie studio, but I don't even think there's like dialogue trees really in your interactions with Delilah as far as I can tell. It's just these things where you get like 3 or so choices and then it leads to a different response. But that could have been, maybe there is more like impact that has, but it really felt like not too impactful what you were choosing. And yeah, that's a big disappointment to me. I expected more there.
See, I never got any sort of feelings like you were saying where she was trying to push you into some sort of extra type of relationship. When I first started talking to her, she did kind of flirt a little bit, and I simply, chose the option that said, well, I'm married and my wife is, not doing too well. She has dementia and stuff like that. And it felt like Delilah kind of like backed off from that point on the game. She never tried again. I mean, she did kind of...
She came back later drunk a couple times, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some girl contacting you when she's drunk doesn't necessarily mean she's trying to get in the pants. But
maybe not from another fire tower away.
I don't know. I never picked up on it as she was trying to cause anything more than just a friendship from that point forward. But then again, also, I mean, looking at the text adventure portion at the beginning, it didn't feel like you had many different branches anyways. So no matter what you chose at the very start of that game, it could have still continued along with Delilah either flirting with you or not, and you telling her you have a wife or not. I mean, even at the very beginning when it says, your wife was offered a job in this other city, do you don't want to go? Do you tell her she's not allowed to go, or that you're okay with, being apart for portions of the year? Mm-hmm. There was never even an option that said, yeah, I'll go on with you. They were definitely funneling you towards one of two outcomes that would work fine with the rest of the story. Mm-hmm. You couldn't really break that path. Mm-hmm. So I never felt like there was anything changing based on what I had done at the beginning, because they just guided me. Point A and point B still led to point C.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was kind of curious if there was like certain dialogue, or just... I'm kind of curious if there's like any plot that had to be cut and then they just kind of like retroactively just kind of funneled you towards certain choices, because I could see like if there's actual extramarital like relations, like could have been like a plot point in the game, or like you were saying, like they could be they could have added like a third choice of like you go with her to the job or whatever. Because I kind of like the way you're talking about. It's like I kind of could see that they tried to do that at some point, and then they just didn't have like the time to finish that out.
But I don't know if that was what they were trying to go for, because to me it felt like the game, they were trying to get you to experience something, which is part of the reason why the game was so freaking linear. It's like, yeah, you had all sorts of options and you were going to end up in the same place with slight slight differences no matter what you did. And I think it was mostly because, and the microphone's only barely picking me up, I think it was because they're trying to make you experience certain things, and they had to have a certain plot and a flow. I mean, the game largely mirrored your previous relationship anyway, your marriage anyway, and things like that. With the fire, with the conspiracy.
Yeah.
So I think that's, I mean, I agree with Jamie that actually kind of probably, I understand what they're trying to do, but it was an opportunity lost to make it a much more interesting, dynamic, game and also relationship with Delilah. Because that really was the best part of the game, the most interactive part. But no, they had to stick with what they were trying to do.
I thought the
No, that's fair.
I thought the idea of the parts that are unchangeable about Henry's backstory, and then the parts that I presume are unchangeable about Delilah's feelings of guilt about the death of Brian. Is it Brian?
Mm-hmm.
The kid?
Yeah.
I like that they didn't I didn't feel like they hammered that home too much or belabored it, but I like the idea of you've been through this experience and you've played through this experience, and then your character, whether you have you had a few choices I think in the dialogue there about when Henry's consoling Delilah or not consoling, or just choosing how to reveal that information. I thought was quite effective, and they're two different scenarios, but I think the whole it's not your fault that this happened kind of thing, that was where I saw the closest parallel, I guess, in Henry's backstory, and then Delilah's, where it felt like one of the most effective moments of them bonding, or that those details being super relevant. But even that was there was a bit less of that. I had conflicting feelings. I liked that they didn't they didn't hammer it home too much, that theme or that connection. But it was also with the amount of time they spent on the other stuff, making you think there's this elaborate conspiracy and other things. It was very quick. The dialogue to do with that was just a few very short sections.
I'm curious. So, I mean, we got Jamie's opinion of the conspiracy. I don't even know what to call that tangent, whatever it was. Did anybody else feel like it was? What did other people think about the conspiracy side of the game? I'm just curious because it does have a very different tone from the beginning and then the very end.
I've also mentioned that, having the endings already revealed, it was very surreal to go through all the clues and be like, yep, I remember that this amounts to nothing.
I kind of agree with Jamie a lot, is that it kind of, for a red herring, it kind of took up a lot of oxygen for, basically the late story. There's so much that's kind of, it basically becomes, the only thing they talk about, for a significant portion of it. And, it's like Jamie said, it's it just doesn't amount to anything, beyond, it's just, someone messing with you.
But it wasn't. It can't be. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Where would a crazy hermit get all that tech from?
Well,
I don't care if he's ex-military. You don't just get stuff like that out of nowhere. And also, there was a scientist working in that premises. And they were taking notes. And they had notes not just on you and on Delilah, but on the two other lookouts, completely different.
He was
one on Ron, the guy that was constantly horny, and some other person who liked to eat a lot.
Did you
was planting the notes?
Planting them?
Did you look through his hideout at the end?
I did.
I didn't find it.
Oh,
I saw you exploring it when I went and I checked out the transmissions way afterwards. The following day, I was curious, so I loaded up the transmissions and I saw you wandering around inside his hideout, and I was like, where? How? I didn't rewind to see you go into it, but I was like, how did these guys find it? Because I found nothing on that mountaintop. I walked all over and I said, what am I supposed to be doing here? Am I supposed to have just gone up this thing to get that final message from Delilah and turn around? I was like, I don't get it.
There's a sign you have to lift up, and it's underground. I missed it, and Patrick had to point it out to me. There's in his bunker, there's a lot of Like, I think I probably stayed in his bunker, like, for a lot longer than I think.
It was about as long as I stood there.
But, like, you find, like, you know, he was typing up, like, these fake reports, and,
Wow.
Yeah, I share that question. Like, it's really strains credibility, the whole thing to me, like, after it's revealed, and just, it's very elaborate.
I completely don't buy it at all. That's why I was actually excited and liking this game. I thought maybe on another playthrough I'd find a different set of outcomes and like, oh, the crazy guy actually, well, maybe he is a crazy guy, but there really were scientists studying him. I mean, who says multiple things could be going on at once?
The justification the game I don't know, it's very weird because like they basically say that the reason he was doing that was because he was scared they would find like Brian's body, and I guess it was his like, you know, Scooby-Doo way of like scaring them off.
That really is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it is pretty Scooby-Doo.
And absolutely unnecessary.
Right.
Hey, it worked for Scooby-Doo, though. That's like every episode.
Right?
You know, the graphics does look like Scooby-Doo.
Maybe there's some hidden connection we'll discover later.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It did seem kind of unnecessary. I mean, being in the woods by yourself could be paranoia-inducing enough.
I was
Without.
terrified playing that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I was constantly horrified.
But the only person you see is that guy in the helicopter at the end. Well, you
I
see
know.
shadows, but
You see the guy.
You see silhouettes like
Yeah.
from a
I
distance.
kind of realized.
Kurt Reynolds.
I kind of realized towards the end I was never going to encounter another figure because as soon as as soon as the dad left I actually don't know what point. It started dawning on me, but the point that really sold it was when that stupid tape message was left for me on the rope. I was like, okay, they obviously don't have the budget to animate a realistic-looking person, so I'm not going to get attacked. I'm not going to meet Delilah. Nothing. Oh, it was kind of maddening after that, you know? I wanted a confrontation. I wanted to fight something. I wanted to actually meet the lady I'd been talking to. And it was just such a waste. The game would have been so good if they could have subverted my expectations.
I suppose. I don't know if I needed to meet someone, but in person as a game, I feel like it could have worked if, you know.
I feel like you should
Every
have.
walking simulator is like this, though.
Yeah, I feel like you probably should have met Delilah, or at least like, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a little.
It's cheap.
I was about to say that. It's like it just feels like a very indie budget sort of way of getting around it.
I feel like the relationship between you and Delilah is like that of Emily is Away. In this
Indie budget?
Have you played Emily is Away?
No, I really no.
You should totally listen to our podcast on Emily is Away and Sibel. But yeah, long story short, Emily is Away, free game. You never hook up with a girl, no matter what you do.
I mean, you do, but not permanently.
No.
Well, yeah, the whole thing ends pretty.
Probably.
But I mean, like I'm saying, like, you know, you could have like you actually. I mean, not you in the game meet Emily, but like in Firewatch, like you could actually present the opportunity to like, you know, see what Delilah looked like at least, or you know what I mean?
I was sort of disappointed that they spent so much time at the beginning not showing you anything, just text, and then like they slowly uncover like what Henry looks like with a mirror or like a picture or
The
like
sketch.
a drawing, the sketch. And then, like, there's a picture of...
That didn't feel like a slow reveal, by the way.
Very
rough to me.
At the beginning, yeah.
Well, however, I don't know. It was a while since I played it, but I was disappointed that I actually got to see what Henry looked like, and Julia. So I was okay not seeing other people like what they looked like, and letting it be whoever I wanted to imagine them being. Outside of my big meaty white hands.
Do you ever learn what Julia looks like? Because
There's a picture of her on a photograph of them.
right, so you know what her hair looks like, and maybe her hands, but like as far as I remember, they covered her face deliberately.
Yeah, I really didn't have any expectation, so that wasn't something that disappointed me. Just because it seems like it's like a standard trope of these types of games at this point. Like, from Gone Home to like everybody's gone to the Rapture to like this, like the whole like excavation simulator rather than just like walking simulator, where you find out everything after the fact, or nobody's actually around, but you still get characterization through all these other means.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I was expecting more because you were talking with someone over a walkie-talkie in the present. You were actively being stalked by a person who was setting up alarms, and God, I do not buy that excuse.
It really seemed like, they were trying to slightly make this seem like not just the rote implementation of that, and make it a little less cliche. Like that I was mentioning before, where like they have those kind of excavation moments, right? Like you find Brian's like hidden cave, and that's all just like characterization about him and his relationship with
Hey,
man.
another human model.
Yeah.
Oh, stop. That doesn't even count. Stop it.
But I thought it was interesting how they kind of overlapped the spoken conversation of you like relaying it back to Delilah. It still felt redundant to me, but again, I felt like they were trying to like give a break to people who might have rolled their eyes a little bit, like, oh, another thing where I'm just gonna like pick up a bunch of handwritten notes from a character I'll never meet and like learn about them, which I like. I don't have a problem with that trope, but it was like everything that you would read in those documents, it felt like there was like a summary of it that I keep almost saying Samson would say, that Henry would say to Delilah. So I don't know, like I thought that was interesting, at least. I didn't feel like it was very effective, particularly because that's such a hard thing to sequence. Like we talked about the emotional dissonance of like when it has like a random side conversation right after this like totally different tone. But even just like sequencing like that particular bit, like Henry would be relating something. There were like 4 notes stacked on top of each other on this table. Yeah. And I noticed when I was watching, it was like Henry was talking about a note that you hadn't like picked up and looked at yet. It was at like the bottom of the pile first and stuff. And that I just found that very jarring.
I noticed little things like that, but I kind of try to ignore it as best I can. I don't know, with me when I play really story-driven games, I kind of get into this mode where it's weird. I do what I would do, but I also I like to pick things that I think feel fitting in terms of story. Like, I was totally just going to leave that boombox alone, but I've been practicing throwing, and it just felt thematically like the appropriate thing to do. But as a result of me, like, okay, throwing that boombox in the lake, do you realize Delilah was infinitely more paranoid about my relationship with those 2 girls? And, like, I don't think you realize, like, right from the beginning, like, if none of you guys, like, antagonize them like that?
No.
The tone is completely different if you do. She's like, oh my god, you antagonized them. Oh my god, you freaked them out. And like, all the things they did were totally warranted because I threw their expensive boombox in the lake. So to me, this was a surprise. But then the escalation, and it just kept making sense. It was like, oh, maybe he really is a psycho that would have attacked somebody until I was like, this doesn't look good. You threw their boombox in the lake, you got in a fight with them, you acted like a child, and you stole their whiskey. And I was like... Okay, yes, it does look bad, but I don't know, maybe for me, when I was playing the game, like, I was actually kind of paranoid, because I thought what I'd chosen to do could come back to actually haunt me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's why I was wondering, if people experience, like, real things that felt like real significant variations like that. Because it seems like there are a few in there, at least. Like,
I was going to say, I think how she reacts to that is entirely based on what you actually tell her. Because I've seen some playthroughs where people throw the boombox in and then just lie to Delilah, and then she basically has the same reaction she did with us. So, so like I think if you like allude to like you threaten them in some way, then she starts freaking out.
Oh yeah.
But that's like another thing where it's like what you physically did in the world, I think, doesn't have really any bearing on,
Yeah.
But still, even with that, you're only changing the dialogue down the line, which, watching your play, I did notice not significantly, but notably different dialogue than when I had played through. But it didn't affect the major points of the story. It was really that you were changing things at the margins. Like what Kat was saying, which I didn't experience, Delilah being much more paranoid and concerned about you.
Oh, and me paranoid.
What kind of effect did that have on the game? None, but it had an notable effect on the dialogue.
A notable effect on me. It had a huge effect on the game. I was constantly freaked out. I was
You
thinking
have no
somebody was
idea.
framing me.
That's true.
I was thinking there was some crazy guy running around the woods who like assaulted and murdered those girls and was trying to pin it on me.
And then it was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Fire cleanse everything.
Speaking of crazy guy running around in the woods, what do people think of the presentation of Ned and like the reveal? Okay, there's one specific thing I have in mind, so let's get to it. I feel like it was trying to set that up as like a loose strand as far as whether or not you think he intentionally killed his son or if it was just an accident, and trying to leave that open. But he tries to kill you. Like he doesn't seem to have any qualms about just like shutting you inside a cave that you may have no idea how to get out of, and the only way to get out is like really obscure.
Yeah.
So I just felt like that was really the like requirements of the suspense thing like really clashed with what seemed like the writer's desire to keep that like an more open-ended thing.
I feel like I'll say this, is like when they started talking about Ned a bunch, like I kind of had this inkling that he would actually factor into the story. Because when they introduced him, he's kind of like a nondescript. Like they kind of said, oh, he was here and now he's not here. And so there was only a couple, I thought it was like going to be like his storyline was either going to be like you only find out notes like through the caches, like it's just going to be like, you know, you get another part of like this story, you know, through that, but then like, you know, he started popping up in a couple areas outside of that. I think that they could have done his character a lot better to like maybe kind of justify his desperation a little bit more, because it seems like he's making a lot of very desperate decisions, but like they're just very weird, and I mean, like you said, it's like very inconsistent. Like one point he's trying to scare you, another point he's like, you know, maybe at best he's unintentionally like locking you in a cave. Like, or
Pretty
well, no, I mean, but I guess like you know,
intentionally possibly harming you and
yeah, like you know, he's not thinking about the actual ramifications of locking you in there. He just wants you away from, you know, wants to scare you.
I actually have a theory about that. The way I acted, I noticed this, and I'm just thinking maybe it'll be different if I play through. Is like actually the story I started telling with me and my boyfriend in Telltale. One thing that my boyfriend decided to do is he would go and he was going to do a run-through of The Walking Dead as quote-unquote assholey, where he would just choose all the meanest, worst options. He would make no friends, just constantly antagonizing people. And, you know, that was interesting, but I liked that idea. And ever since we sort of came up with that, like, I've always made room in my heart, I guess, for like, oh, you know, I should go through a game and just be the absolute worst, you know? I think the notes that Ned leaves and, like, the notes that he takes on you, for instance, are different depending on how you interact with Delilah and respond to different situations. But I think his overall opinion on you will change depending on how you behave. Because,
Excuse me.
here's the impression I got. Like, Delilah is not a very honest person. She's got this guy on the side. She's probably lying about it. I mean... And that's the thing, like, what kind of message did Ned leave for you guys? Did he say, like, sound super nice and be like, oh, I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding, I like you, guy. I picked up some of his notes and I read them, and he was like, he actually explicitly wrote, oh, Henry's a good guy in this. And, like, he left me some sort of phony message, like, phony sounding, like, he'd be like, oh, I know why you like Delilah, she's a real keeper, or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but you're the same guy who was writing and she's a liar, so I almost feel like he was trying to be nice to me, and I didn't end up hooking up with her in the end, though I kind of wanted to have that happen, so to me that just kind of confirms the fact that she definitely did have a guy on the side who was telling a lot of lies, and it wasn't crazy, and wasn't an alcoholic and a bit of a jerk person, and kind of manipulative. You guys didn't read into any of this?
No, I mean, I don't think I got that. I think I got something that was more just him being defensive about himself. It focused much more on him than on her.
Yeah, there was that.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but I don't remember any of that part.
I kind of got the idea that Ned was like super manipulative because, like, I mean, one thing is like there's this series of notes where like I know what notes you're talking about where it's like he's saying, you know, Henry's a good guy, and then like a couple notes down he's like, Henry's not that great a guy, because he starts like finding out, you know, he starts getting closer to actually finding Ned. So I think he's super paranoid, but I think like nearly everything Ned says is kind of like his. I mean, I kind of get this idea that, like, he was trying to be a good father to Brian, and he just, like, just because of his, like, upbringing or time in the military or anything, like, I feel like he's super narcissistic, and, he's kind of, like, ultimately, he's going to just look out for himself, because, like, he didn't take any responsibility for, at the, like, best case scenario, like, he had a accident with his son, and his son died, and he didn't take any responsibility for bringing him up there. And I think, like, he's kind of just been living with that guilt in some very weird, messed up way.
Yeah.
We may have just stacked on top of his PTSD, though.
I mean, he's definitely a complete and utter jerk in a lot of regards, but that doesn't mean, what is it? A broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, even if he is a complete nut, that doesn't mean, like, I think I was up throughout the game. I consistently, except for the boombox thing, but that's because I got on my nerves, I tried to be a very nice person. And I don't know, I really get the feeling if you go back and play differently, like, maybe the message he'll leave behind for you is something different. I don't know. Maybe this is just me giving the game too much credit, I guess.
I kind of feel like it could be something where maybe he finds, like, a kindred spirit in you. Like, if he gets this idea that, like, you're trying not to take responsibility for, your wife, like, he could kind of be seeing that as, like, we're kind of like this, we're the same, you and I, sort of thing.
Maybe.
I kind of took Ned as a reminder that the game is tracking your decisions. So I haven't gone to the part where, unfortunately, I get to check out what Ned's lookout is, what his message is, and so forth. So I don't know what the results of him talking back to me would be. But at least the way I was expecting it was that at some point he would basically give you the rundown of what he thought of you. And that will change dynamically based off what your actions are. So I'm more inclined to believe in Kat's theory that, there's more behind Ted's so-called personality. It turns out the real personality you get to actually form was Ned and not Henry throughout the entire game. Plot twist!
Well, that's what I'm worrying about. I'm wondering if I go through and play as a complete and utter jerk, maybe he'll come to hate me so much, he'll be like, yeah, you know what, she is lying to you. She doesn't care about you at all.
I'm sure he already noted that I dropped a cinder block on top of a turtle.
I didn't see that much.
Boom, butterfly effect.
Just as a side thing, I don't remember how I found the turtle. And I know the turtle's big thing in ads and, like, people talking about the game, but I hadn't read much about it when I played it.
Yeah, we never found it.
Not in their playthrough, but when I played it, I found the turtle. I was like, I gotta keep the turtle. And I just, like, I don't even remember how I found the turtle now.
I found, as Jace mentioned earlier, I found 2 turtles. Both were named Buckets Jr., which was really strange. I don't think it was meant to happen.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of things when you play games that
So, as an aside...
Buckets Jr. makes sense, right?
Yes.
Or one of them. I'm assuming you named your dog Buckets.
Yeah, so no, it was Julia who named the dog Bucket.
But the dog was named Buckets.
Right. No, the reason you get to actually name the turtle at some point. And so I got to name the first turtle, adopted it, and then I found another turtle, and it was already named Buckets Jr. And I'm like, when did this happen? So I adopted that too, and I only got 1 turtle as a result. So I was very disappointed.
Wait, you named the first turtle Buckets Jr.?
Yeah.
And don't you think Buckets Jr. just got out?
But I adopted it, and in the same session, it somehow reappeared again at another rock.
It was the same day?
It was the same day.
No.
Weird.
It's all part of the
Not a
conspiracy.
slow turtle.
It knew the cinder block was coming.
It's cloning turtles in the wilderness.
I also dropped bleach just to be extra sure.
God,
It was still fine.
What do you have against turtles?
I'm glad you're out there protecting nature for us.
Thanks, Taro.
Oh, I dropped everything I had on it.
Well, I must have missed the part where you finally named the turtle somehow, or I just didn't remember that. But in the playthrough I was watching today for the latter half of the game, like the turtle was just there, and then it was named Turtle Reynolds. That to me is like, I don't know. If you do like some of the moments of humor in the writing in this game, like you should listen to Idle Thumbs, because that's like their whole sense of humor. Like Turtle Reynolds, that succinctly summarizes like, their general sense of humor, and it's awesome. Like, I think they would do a great job if they just did like a more comedy-oriented game at some point.
Mm-hmm.
As a completely random aside, the other story about how I play and somehow things happen is I somehow managed to glitch the game to make every item that can appear on your hands appear on your hands. And
at the same time.
At the same time.
What?
It was the most bizarre bug I've ever seen.
Let's be honest, it was grotesque.
Custom buddy Firewatch.
It was amazing.
God.
I have a screenshot of it. I'm sure we'll put it up on the YouTube video when we post this podcast.
Oh, just gotta go
Like,
something
yeah.
like from Akira. Just
Oh god, no. Henry's got big meaty mitts. I can picture him just holding everything that's holdable in the world.
It was amazing because it was before I got the axe, and the axe was in his hand, and I'm like, that doesn't look right. Anyway, sorry. That was a complete aside that had nothing to do with the story. I will say that since you made the whole Idle Thumbs thing, I'm kind of curious as to what kind of encounters people had on stories or like tidbits that had absolutely nothing to do with the mainline story. Because that's kind of like the one part I liked most about Delilah, the fact that she's your Pokédex and you're like, oh, there's a valley here, and she goes through a whole narrow story in her own sassy way of what the heck the valley was all about and that kind of stuff. So for me, like that was the most special thing, and at least in my opinion, is where the biggest potential in walking simulators can be.
Yeah, I think I made my partner pretty dizzy if she were in the room when I was playing, because I was always looking for those things to tell Delilah about.
oh yeah.
And I was walking around looking at the ground and up at the sky. And then I'd whip out my map and I'd go, I gotta go this way. And then I'd look around and I'd just like,
That's how I played PT.
find all the things that you can look at and then take a picture of stuff. Really appreciated that. So it was this weird, like I wanted to find those things to tell Delilah, but at some point or several times throughout the story, she indicated that I didn't need to tell her. Like, did you get that? Where she's like, what are you going to call me every time and tell me you found a rock?
She did say that.
Like,
I got
you
something
found
like
a
that,
rock.
but-
Oh, yeah, there's something. And I was like, so you don't want me to tell you stuff? But like every time there's something I'm supposed to? Like, you're just confusing me.
I
But I
liked
did it anyway.
I liked when he got stung by a bee. I convinced myself it was gonna have like plot significance, because it's right at the beginning of like, oh, we're going into shadowy conspiracy zone.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
like that bee is gonna be carrying like the mutating
I thought the
agent.
same
That's gonna be
Honestly.
so I love that call. And like, I got stung by a bee. Oh yeah. Did it hurt? Yeah, a little bit. Okay.
Right?
All
You're like,
right.
I don't know.
This is supposed to be something. It's not anything.
Oh yeah, that's.
So that was,
I did like her attitude.
I was pleased that I got stung by a bee because I got a trophy for that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, I found the turtle. I got a trophy for that. And then I was super disappointed because I found the raccoon. And I was like, ooh, look, there's a raccoon. I didn't know there was a trophy or anything. So I was like, cool, there's a raccoon there. I'm going to take out my camera and take a picture. He ran away. It turns out you're supposed to just blunderly run up to him like a blundering fool. And then he attacks you and jumps on your face. And you get a trophy for that. So I was like, what? I'm not playing it through again
That's
just to
not
have
a smart thing
a
to
raccoon attack.
That's interesting that happens because in my playthrough, when I encountered the raccoon, I did not have a camera at this point. So what Delilah did was she deliberately screamed at the walkie-talkie to scare away the raccoon, and that's what happened. And so then my character... So I had a couple of choices in regard to say to Delilah, like, what was that for? But instead I chose, wait, what happened?
Oh, is that the thing when she yelled about pears? Or-
Yeah.
That wasn't to scare away the raccoon, she was just being loud. With exclamation in general.
Oh, I took that as a deliberate thing because, you know,
No,
she was really sassy at that. She was really sarcastic at that point. She's like, yeah, there are raccoons in this forest.
Is that the raccoon that jumps out at you when you open a little cabinet or something in the hut?
No.
There's another raccoon. Is there not?
There was
How
something.
many raccoons are
It's on
there?
like a stump, a tree
Yeah.
stump.
I
or
found a little hut in the forest. It was to the east, the northeast of the map. And it was just like this abandoned hut.
Yeah.
And I walked inside, and there was a little, I don't know if it was a cabinet or a stove or some kind of something, where I opened the door, and some furry creature jumped out at me, and then he took off.
Oh.
There was no option to call Delilah on him or anything. He just jumped out and took off. And looking back at the entire game, I think that was the most action I'd seen in the entire game.
That was the mongoose sequence in Until Dawn. We finally did it.
Yes, it was something like that. I mean, it surprised me because I was not expecting any action in the game from this point forward. It was just, everything was just still scenery and stuff, not even a person, just silhouettes of a couple of girls way in the background. But I mean, like, this was a creature that jumped out at me, and I did not expect it.
Did you get any sort of achievement for that?
I wasn't playing the ones that had the achievement.
Oh, okay. So I'm looking at the achievements I picked up, and I have bee plot. Get stung by a bee. It happens. The Life and Times Raccoon Carter. Got attacked by a raccoon. Probably didn't get rabies. Shutterbug. Love turts. Adopt a turtle as a pet. Or Old Shoshone. Listen to the tape of Old Shoshone. Avoided among the aspens. So I just don't know what else I've missed. I did cover those maps pretty thoroughly when I played it. So
Were there any encounters, Frederica, that you had that you remember?
I remember the bee. I don't remember. It's been a...
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, I really like the part where there's the person's in the distance, you're like freaking out about there being a person out here. And I really love Delilah's reaction. There's something there's something so much to have told you about this place. It's great. But, yeah, I didn't actually run across any raccoons.
I see.
So, I'm like, now I have to go check it out.
Gotta catch them all. Kat, did you already tell your funny story you alluded to?
Yeah.
Oh no, I already told it. The Wapiti Station thing, like I totally killed all the tension, like right in the middle of investigating the
Right.
thing. I walked all the way back home and wanted to stay there. I was done.
The part I remember the most when it comes to Delilah's Pokédex functionality is talking about the Thunder Canyon, and she'll start doing some lightning-related puns right after that, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I ended it somewhere in the middle by accident because I didn't realize the ... would end the conversation, and I'm like, no, I wanted to hear more.
Yeah.
On the same frame of mind as Kat's story about Wapiti Station, when I got there, the entire time I was there, I was paranoid that someone was going to show up, which probably...
Well, the bee did show up.
Well, like a person.
Are you saying these aren't people?
It was brought on, of course, from the fact that while I was looking for this non-existent bear, somebody clocked me from behind, and I'm thinking the entire time that I'm walking around, snooping through somebody's stuff in this little tent, and somebody's going to clock me from behind again. So I was constantly turning around every time I interacted with something to try to catch somebody, because I just wanted to see another person in this game. But
right?
Yeah. Though I do remember one fun thing we did where we took what's his name, Burns, and put him in the outhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Like Forest Ranger, like Smokey the Bear. Forest
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuffed them in the toilet.
Oh
It's still there.
The outhouse also has like a really funny conversation piece. I remember now, where it's just like, so where do you go to the bathroom? Is the outhouse the only place? And Delilah goes like, well, whenever I feel like I really need to go, I just do it anywhere that I happen to be
Full
standing at.
disclosure, I go anywhere. Yeah, I was watching Markiplier's playthrough of this game, and yeah, that's kind of when I started to catch on that maybe things wouldn't be so different if I did another playthrough, which bummed me out. But I can't believe I'm the only one that threw the boombox. It just felt like such a natural decision. Look, man, litterbugs, stupid punk rude.
I guess we just don't share the same taste of music.
When I played the game, I cleaned up every freaking beer I can.
I was just gonna say,
As did I.
thought there
As
must
did
be
I.
a reward, a trophy, or like something in the game for
I
like super cleanup person.
Yeah, right?
So I picked up every can I found,
Person.
recycled everything.
Yeah.
Good deeds are their own reward.
There were beer cans that were embedded in the ground and I could not pick up.
Yeah, there was one I found that was
There was
embedded.
two at
No,
least.
you just have to be super skillful.
Pointer.
See, I was also trying to hold on to my 20-sided die at the same time.
Priorities here.
Yeah, that became my tomato paste.
I thought you could hold on to everything at once, Tara. Gotta use that superpower. I don't know, Tara, when you told me your story about picking up the boombox and just walking it like all the way across the map, which was very easy for me to picture you doing. I'm kind of glad I missed that bit. But, some reason I pictured you like finding a way to get to Delilah's like lookout tower and just doing the like, what's the movie? It's like holding up the boombox. That's how you get the good ending.
Given what that
Power
movie
rock.
was about, I kind of think it would be the opposite. But anyways, moving on.
So, we actually covered pretty much all the ground I intended to, and then a lot besides from that. So I don't have anything else. So I guess we're just going to enter with closing thoughts, unless Jason wants to say something.
When I had all this desire to have more agency in the story, and there were all these exciting things happening that I was disappointed weren't exciting in the end. And so I got to the end of the game, and I'm wondering if anybody else felt like this, but it felt like, I don't know, a microcosm or an analogy of life where, like, things are just kind of going to happen. And, like, or the designer's statements about fate and how stuff is just going to happen whether you want it to or not, or, like, whatever it is you answer in your dialogue or whatever, like, stuff is just going to still play out how it's going to play out, and you don't really have as much agency as you would like to believe you have in life. So, like, a lot of times I look at life and it seems really boring to me, and I think that that's perhaps true for a lot of other people, which is why we as humans take a lot of interest in storytelling, and our stories that we tell and the stories we watch on TV or read about in books are like super exciting and things are like really dramatic. And so here's the story we're playing through, and there's all this exciting stuff that's happening, and then it turns out to not be so exciting. Like, oh, they found the girls, and like, oh,
That was quite
it's a
anticlimactic,
conspiracy
yeah.
theory. Oh no, he's just kind of a guy who's like, trying to figure out this stuff, and like, and there's this relationship that's not really a relationship.
Go anywhere, yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, that was just so boring, like, like life. And I was trying to get so much more out of it. Like, why did I want to get so much more out of it anyways? Like, why can't I just be okay with it in this state? And I wondered if anybody else felt that way, or like,
it kind of ties in a little with a couple of the other things I was saying about it before for me, where like I don't have a problem with like nearly plotless stories a lot of the time if they're interesting characters. Like that's usually the part that I latch onto no matter what. And I've been accused by partners and friends and other people who I've recommended things to, or tried to get to watch things with me, of liking very boring stuff.
Okay, so note to self: if Jamie recommends a book, don't read it.
Yeah, if you're into just like plot, like exciting plot, then I mean, I like occasionally I'll like something like that, but it's not what I gravitate towards. So to me, I mean, I like that choice. I like the kind of the idea of like subverting the expectation of like big, culminating, climactic, explosive action or whatever. And if there was like a through line for me that was like effective thematically or in terms of like characterization in Firewatch, it was like the way the few characters that we do get to know, both Henry and Delilah, but also Ned, like deal with the stuff that happens that you can't necessarily prevent, right? Or just like bad things happening, and like all three of those characters, I feel like have examples of that and have like some very different responses to it. That's very revealing of like their characters and kind of like continue to address that theme in different ways. So I don't know. That's just reminding me of the whole idea of like a lot of stuff that happens is like beyond our control. But like how we respond to it maybe isn't like, and so
How we respond to things.
yeah. So the structure of the game being like more linear and things, but you still being able to define some of your own character's reactions to things was like some of the most effective part for me, and I think that's why the beginning is like the most concentrated dose of that. I felt like, and that was also my favorite part, probably not coincidentally.
Sometimes in life, I think there's a lot of like, oh my god, this is a big deal. This is going to be bad. This could be really bad. I don't know what's going to happen. And it just passed and stuff. Like, I guess it was not great. It was like, okay, it was pretty bad, but like whatever stuff, life's still moving on. And I got that sense from, because I got worked up about the girls. Like, what are they going to think about me? The cops are going to come and get me. Oh, they found them. Wow, that's boring. But like, okay, now I've moved on, and like
it was a relief that it was boring, right? Like,
it was,
but
I was playing a game, so I'm like,
weren't they missing in action for 2 months?
Yeah, a little weird that they just showed up riding a tractor somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense. They were missing for 2 months. Anything could have happened. They may have made a time machine by then.
Maybe.
I really like there was like a line at the end that Delilah says. There's something that she's saying to Henry about like basically like you have to go see Julia or whatever. You get to respond. Is it Julia?
Yes, correct.
And it's basically just saying like things are ahead of you still. Like your actual life is ahead of you. This is the kind of whole idea of like people just coming out to like do this job as like a respite or like avoiding certain things in their life was really, I don't know, that resonated with me a lot.
Yeah, I like
so that leads me to another. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying I like that too.
Yeah, I like the line that like was a pause in the hallway of time or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't like that. That was kind of a neat line, but
the whole Julia thing and her Delilah telling you need to go back to that was another thing I wanted to ask people if they saw any correlation to the fire in itself, which I would say is perhaps the reason they chose the fiery red emblem as their logo instead of the mostly green luscious game that you actually play in, because when I got to the end, I realized like, oh, this fire started, and there wasn't anything really we could do about it, except tell people and talk to people about it and watch it grow, and they sort of danced around it and didn't deal with it and didn't deal with it and didn't deal with it until like they had to get out and they just had to leave because like the people who would deal with it would come and deal with it. But it sort of felt like a statement about not dealing with a personal issue. Like, so in the story, it's Henry's personal issue with like what to do with his wife. how to resolve that piece of his life. And he's gone to this range as a ranger to escape that, in a sense. But he can't really escape it because it's the fire, and it's always there burning in the background. And eventually it's going to burn everything away until he has to pay attention to it. So I came away from the game thinking like, I wonder what's burning for me.
That smell.
That I need to watch and pay attention to and put out before it eradicates everything else in my life. Like, is there anything? Or, like, how many fires am I trying to tend? And so I wondered if anybody else... it stood out to me because I thought Firewatch was going to be a different type of game based on the name and that fiery red emblem of a, like, front page logo imagery. Whatever that you want to call that. And then I realized it wasn't that kind of game until I got to the end, and then I was like, oh, look at what you're telling me. So I wondered if anybody else had...
I'm staring at John because at the end of transmissions he had something very special to say.
It did.
Yes. The part I'm talking about is you mentioned that there was a lot of parallels between Ned's treatment with his son and
which I think
Henry's treatment with Julia.
Basically, it's like noticing the, I think I noticed like a different parallel than you did of like the fire of like, basically how I was realizing like how Ned dealt with his son's death. Kind of like, he kind of tried to do the same thing like, Henry was doing, running away from Julia. Of like, he was trying to run away from like, he did a reverse thing of like, he wasn't going back to the civilized world because he didn't want to deal with like the actual repercussions of like, his son's dead and like, all that stuff. So I think there's like there's a lot of themes of, how people deal with just crisis. And, I think it all kind of ties into like, the fire, like you said, of, it's this thing that just like, it's always there and like you can always talk about it and it's just going to keep building up until you have to deal with it. And I think that's like, I think that's, is what they were trying to go for in this whole game. I think that they could have done it a lot better in certain aspects because, I think like, the whole late half of the game is one, freaking out about this weird conspiracy that doesn't, is a red herring ultimately. And I think that, that kind of takes away from a lot of like the, I don't know. I think like the thing I was trying to get at is like there's actual some like really deep moments there in the end of the game, like the very, very like, after the reveal of everything. And I think that the game kind of just like shoots itself in the foot with, a lot of stuff like just, I don't know. I think that kind of like says everything. Like, it had its own weird fire to kind of deal with, and I don't think they kind of solved it.
Such a versatile metaphor.
Yeah.
Watch is the Firewatch.
Gotta pull out more now. Yeah. Well, I think that summation, Jason, was like very beautiful. Really, kind of makes me like the game a little bit more, and like it reinforces for me kind of what I was saying before, and John, what you were saying as well, like about the way they don't like they don't overly call attention to the themes. Like there's some good writing in there, and that you can draw these parallels, and once you draw them, like they make perfect sense. Like they add a lot of extra resonance, but there's no moment where like you're talking about the parallels between Ned and Henry. Like that tape that Ned sends you could have been like the perfect time for a lesser writer to have like a villain monologue about we're not so different, you and I, like, and that's not there like that explicitly. I think that's to the credit of the writing.
Yeah, the writers definitely had a lot of trust in the player to really comprehend and take the narration on their own terms, which I have a lot of respect for. I'm so often miffed at like let's say a few anime movies, mangas, and other random translations where they just have to explain it for the American audience when it's more than spices for the Japanese audience to not imply anything.
I feel like that happens a lot with translation. Like things become more literal, unless like it's a very careful translator, like making sure that they don't. Yeah, that like you mentioned trust, and actually like that's a really good point because again, like that it throws into such contrast for me. Like what I was saying before about how I don't feel like they trusted the player to necessarily to just like have patience with the actual story, and that's where like the red herring thing again comes in as like a major flaw. Because they did have a lot of trust in the players and as like readers as well to like draw out these associations. So it just it really highlights the portions where they maybe weren't as confident or didn't have that level of trust.
Now the question you posed earlier about how you were playing the game and it turns out that this big conspiracy and everything that was going on was just a bunch of boringness. So I was thinking about how to get into this, and I had a whole bunch of different thoughts, and I mean even Northern Exposure popped in there. And I'll bring that up in a bit, but so once I got into the game, it starts out, and your first assignment essentially is to go down to the lake and stop the girls from whatever they're doing.
Skinny dipping.
Yeah, I guess.
Fireworks.
So
Yeah, you're right. It's fireworks. The
Yes.
real reason is the fireworks.
That's the real problem in that scenario.
So for me, like I said, I stole their boombox, and I get back to my Firewatch tower, and it's already been broken into. So my hypothesis at the time was these girls were just really upset that I stole their boombox, that I tried to get it back. Well, of course, that had nothing to do with it at all, especially considering my boombox vanished the following day. But then the story moves on to, okay, well, now you have to go and stop the girls from... Oh, no, it was the cable wire. The cable wire was cut.
Yeah.
And so now you have to track this down, and you're led to believe that the girls had cut the cable wire. And then you had to go stop the fireworks. And everything leading up to this point was that these girls were in on this big, huge plot of revenge against you. And that may or may not have been the case, considering we found a note from them saying, this is to get back at you, we're leaving or whatnot. Could have been planted by Ned, who knows, whatever.
Well, yeah, they also made a note of like, oh, stealing panties is gross. And if you remember, up near the cut cable line, there was one of the girl's panties with like a taunting note written on it. But that makes you wonder, like, why would they say somebody stole my pants if they didn't actually... I don't know, for me, it planted some doubt. Did they really write that note, or
it could have been Ned who stole them, and then she wrote the note to you thinking that it was you who did it when it was actually Ned.
Yeah, like, exactly. I was constantly thinking like that, playing the game. Like, did so-and-so do this? Did they do this? What motives would they have? And it made it so much more interesting, I think. But,
right.
Sorry, go on.
No. So at the very beginning, of course, your main suspect are these girls that are doing something. And then once they vanish, somehow it morphs into now somebody else has it out for you. And for me, I'm thinking it had to do with these two guys who are writing notes back and forth to each other in the boxes, because they seem to have absolutely no impact on the actual story whatsoever. I'm like, okay, these guys have something to do with this. And that never materialized. But then it became, okay, well, now there's a secret study going on in the forest that nobody can see from their watchtowers. And we have to get in there somehow and figure out what's going on. So we get in there, and then it becomes something else. And the entire time that you're playing the game, it's one conspiracy after another. Somebody is trying to get you, and you have to eventually swap walkie-talkies because they can listen in on you. Yeah. And finally, it becomes essentially just this guy who accidentally let his kid die. And I mean, when you get down to the fact of it, it was no big conspiracy. It was just a boring, okay, well, guy accidentally let his kid die, which is tragic in its own right.
Yeah.
But, as far as what they were making it out to be, it was nothing. Which, if you think about it, these are two people who were stuck in a watchtower, for months at a time, who have no other human interaction than a voice on a radio.
Yeah.
And they're going to go a little mad. and they're going to see things there that aren't actually happening.
Exactly.
They're going to read everything into this because they're just completely isolated from the rest of civilization.
Yeah, right?
So you think they did a good job in the storytelling of portraying that
For the
mental
most
state?
Paranoia.
For the most part, because they had to go and make the whole storyline about Ned being behind everything. If Ned was not there, if that part of the story was not there, and it was literally something incredibly boring, like a bunch of bird watchers, then you had the point of, okay, your main characters literally were going mad from being isolated.
That would have been an interesting
And it
direction
would
to
have
go
been
in,
more
yeah.
of a Twilight Zone-ish, twist in the end where it's like, okay, well, really nothing was happening. People were just going crazy. That would have made it a lot better than this guy just had something out for you because you happened to be getting a little too close to where his dead body's get,
I don't know if I inherently like that option better. I mean, it's interesting. It feels like a bit of a cliche in its own right as well, to the point where there's a couple throwaway dialogue options I noticed, like referring to that possibility.
But they're not throwaway. That's the thing.
So
It
did you
fosters
choose
an
that?
Overall, no, I didn't. But it fosters an overall sense of paranoia.
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
true.
this whole game is about. Paranoia, trust, like the relationships, specifically how they don't work. Ned wasn't a good father to his son. The kid died.
That's your takeaway from relationships don't work.
Look what happened with you and Delilah. Look what happened with you and
I'm
Julia.
not question. I think that's a great takeaway. That's a great summary of Firewatch.
So what I got from all that you said,
Okay.
and I'll let Kat continue, sorry about that.
Okay.
I just wanted to make this one joke, is that what actually happened was they were emulating the internet before the internet was invented.
It technically was before the internet was. It was just a bunch of urban legends, I guess.
It's no such.
This is foretelling the future in a creepy way.
Oh, but the reason I brought up Northern Exposure, though, was because there actually was an episode where Dr. Fleischman has to go to a watchtower in the woods to help out somebody who is on a fire watch. And the guy up there has not had any human contact in probably a couple of years because he just stays up there in his tower. So he just constantly talked Fleischman's ear off to the point where Fleischman knew he needed to get out of there. He brought him back to town. And every single person that he talked to, he wasn't able to interpret any sort of visual cues. He was like Asperger's, he just did not get it. Any sort of way to correspond with people. So he just kept talking people's ear off every time they wanted to break away. And it's how I kind of interpret these people. It's just that they were losing touch with reality, and they were just everything that was going on was in their mind because they were just going stir crazy up there.
Mm-hmm. I apologize, Kat. You started the line about talking about paranoia.
That's the whole game. That's the whole theme of it. I mean, right from the beginning, I think. I was watching Markiplier play today. There's a certain set of options where, like, Delilah talks about, like, I want you to feel safe here. You can respond with, oh, just point me to a weapons cache. And then she'll be like, oh, yeah, people learned a long time ago, it's not good to put somebody alone for, like, months at a time with a gun in the wilderness. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But if you think about it, you hear about all these stories about, like, mountain men or, like, lookouts just going crazy. Isolationists, nuts things to people. And right from the beginning, like, I was kind of expecting dark things from this game. I was expecting things to go bad and to go wrong. And when they started going wrong, that freaked me out. And honestly, I forgot where I was going with this, but the whole game is about that. It's about creating that paranoia, like that. And also, you know, from the beginning, like right from the beginning, Delilah is like, "Oh, what are you running away from?" Like, and then there's that note, right? That one guy was writing the other guy. He was like, "Oh, remember that one time we saw that lookout from Chimney Rock jerking himself off in a hammock?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think they only pick crazy people to come out here." and then Delilah mentioned Brian and the kid, and Brian and Ned, and she was like, "Oh yeah, they just vanished." And I was like, you're in a weird twilight zone of people that are definitely weird and are getting away from something. And you're in the wilderness. Like, nature does not forgive. Nature is not nice. Nature is the worst.
It's really funny because after playing this game, Patrick said that he wanted to work as a firewatch.
You say that now.
What?
You say that now. But, yeah.
I mean, you'll be there with him, right, Frederica?
Oh,
On the
God,
other
no,
end,
she's
walkie
not
talkie.
coming with me.
There was there were a couple of like reference stories and things that I think they've talked about on Idle Thumbs because they occasionally will like make allusions to the development of the games they're working on. So they've talked about Firewatch a little bit here and there. And there was some story that I had read that I think kind of dealt with those themes as well. It might have actually been like a nonfiction, like first-person account of like of somebody who did did that job. I was just trying to find the name and the author, but if we find it, we'll like post the link for sure with the video. Can't remember what it was called. But yeah, it was interesting. Like, it definitely, if you're into, maybe before you go and take your job in the lookout tower.
They don't have as many of them these days. It's really sad. It's all automated or satellites.
It's probably going to be even less now.
Garbage.
Now
Anyway.
we all live in our own Firewatch lookout tower. And it's called our computers.
Whoa, that's so deep. It's getting deeper and deeper.
You should write a book or something, man.
It's like reminded me of the line about the pause in the hallway of time thing, which was simultaneously deep and then triggered the like.
Then very
Did they
good.
smoke a lot of pot by any chance? yeah, they did.
I have a question. Were there any parts in the game where any of you felt like your immersion was just completely destroyed in the game?
I kind of felt like that when I was dealing with the girls. Like, I picked an option and it didn't quite go the way I was expecting. I forget. I just went off on them when I was not expecting that selection to go that way. And it kind of, I found it jarring. But yeah, it's been a couple weeks since that, so I don't know the particulars. But.
See, I had a couple moments, like apparently the big fire, I can't remember where in the game it says it, but the big fire happens on June 31st. As somebody born on June 30th, they know there is no June 31st. So I was like, okay, don't know how that happened. But then there were other things where it's like, even at the very end of the game, when you know somebody is trying to kill you, if you go back to call over Delilah's car to bring you over to safety, she still tells you, no, you must remain over there because we haven't figured this out yet. It's like, really? Somebody's trying to kill me and you're not going to let me come over. It's like, obviously the game needed that in there so to keep the game going, but it was completely immersion breaking because that's not what any rational person would do in any sort of situation. Aside from the fact that Ned clearly had been wandering around this forest for I don't know how many years it had been since 3 years since his son had died. He must have explored every nook and cranny, yet all of his son's toys are still sitting out there. You'd think that he would have like gathered them up, maybe hid them, or moved to the body and buried it so that, should somebody ever stumble upon that cave, they don't find out what happens.
Grief does weird things to parents.
Yeah, and I think he was probably a bit not necessarily. He wasn't dealing with it to a certain extent, so it's possible that he just couldn't deal with that, with the toys and the stuff and the body.
It's almost like he wanted you to find it.
Possibly.
I don't want to go that far.
So, after I placed that cinder block on top of that turtle, I said, no, this is the immersion breaking conversations I'm talking
That would
about.
definitely break the immersion.
I also stacked all sorts of other things, including bleach, soap, all the books I can find in the room, so on and so forth. And I created this nice, neat pile on the box of where the turtle was adopted. The problem is the turtle's still moving in the bottom, so it'll knock some stuff over momentarily, and I'm like, oh man, I need to clean this up again. And I'm like, wait a minute. The only reason why these are toppling over is because the turtle's still alive after all that things I piled on top of it.
So that was very immersion breaking.
It's just the hardest turtle shell in history. You should be the fifth
One
turtle.
tough turtle, yeah.
Yeah.
It's strong, too, to be able to walk around in that stuff.
I'll also say when the hand turned, made all the items that you can carry up here. That was also immersion breaking. I've already mentioned the other, like the more likely scenario, somebody encountering it, where like you interrupt in the middle of a conversation with, "Hey, I found a new canyon," and it's like there's a complete change of tone right there.
Yeah.
That's hugely immersion breaking as well. Some of the more immersion breaking parts actually were the sudden moments where the chapter would end.
Yeah.
I was going to say when you brought that up with Frederica, when I was exploring the girl's tent, and that was the end of a day or a chapter or something, I like wanted to take pictures and stuff, and suddenly like the chapter was ending, and I quick snapped one of their tent, and then it was gone. Like, and I hadn't like looked at and reported in on several items, so I was like, oh, I touched the one thing that would trigger the end, and I was.
Yeah, that is pretty stupid, I think.
Yeah.
I would have liked it better if like you had to go back to your tower or the vicinity to end the chapter. Because I mean, there's one point I think when we like stopped the streams, like, and we picked it up the next week, like there's this whole thing we had to do like all this backtracking to get this axe and everything, and all of a sudden you do the stuff in the tent at Boppity Station, and then it's like, oh, then the day's over, and it's like, you know. It felt really weird to like make you go through backtracking for some stuff, and I don't know. It felt kind of inconsistent in a weird way.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, the pacing worked, though. When you just have that little moment where you're sitting somewhere and have a little bit of dialogue to kind of fill in what was happening, and then go on, and that was good for pacing. But yeah, I think like wham.
Yeah, I think there's like some pacing. I mean, when you're directly interacting with something, or you're like, you know, coming away like 30 seconds away from like interacting, like, you know, with the tent or something, like you should have had like a little bit of a buffer before, you know, it just like ended.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Very abrupt.
June 31st, though.
There was I wanted to kind of branch off from Frederica said there's a montage portion where you have like a very short clip of just doing a random activity. Mm-hmm. I thought those were the other stronger parts of the game that I actually really liked. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, that is, it's a little strange because, you know, they'll just cut off suddenly, and that's like, what was that for? But then, like, you have that just moment of solace where there's even less things to do. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like look around and just enjoy the view while you're listening to a conversation. For me, like, those were actually the more stronger parts of the game. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you guys think about those parts?
I like the pacing of it. I like the fact that you'd go in, have a bit of story, go back out. There was no, you know, because that was the important part. It was what was happening, what you were saying to each other. Or, you know.
Because, like, I can definitely see why the story was structured that way. You have this whole beginning part where you're just trying to figure out, and they're like, all right, you're getting comfortable. Let's just kind of zip through these montage of different moments of you learning one thing after another. Yeah. And at least to me, like, I thought that was like a really good way of showing the passage of time. Yeah. That, you know, not that many games have experimented as much. So at least to me, that was like one of those stronger parts. I don't know.
Yeah. It also kind of felt like it was a memory in some ways, because you know how your memories are funny. Like, when you're new to something, everything is like, you're like paying attention to every detail. Mm-hmm. So the first few days, you're going to be like noticing everything. And then as you go along, you're going to have little blips where, oh, that time I talked to Delilah about the cops. You know? So
some days are more boring than others.
Yeah, and some things are going to stick out to you years after the fact. So
yeah. I actually appreciated that we didn't have to hike all the way back to the tower. There were times I missed it, because there were times when I just wanted to go and run away and hide in my tower with all the evidence I had collected, and I didn't want to stick around that tent. That was stupid. Yeah. I don't know, I appreciated the jump cuts. It also, if you were kind of playing from a place of paranoia like me, they really emphasized how little control you had of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And like just the fact that, I don't know, maybe the tossing that boombox really made the game like very different for me, or maybe just my expectations led me to have a very different experience from you guys overall. I mean, some things I definitely agree on, like the wandering could get boring, the controls weren't always, totally great, but I don't know, I felt like I kind of got the game and everything sort of flowed very naturally, even when it didn't. Like, it's so weird. I think the Ned thing is complete crap in hindsight, but at the time I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, and not even like it makes sense in a satisfying way. I was like, oh, that's disappointing, but I accept it and it seems plausible. There's just something very interesting about the game overall, and like the idea of disappointment. Things not going the way they should.
It turned out the conspiracy theory was false after all.
How disappointing.
Right. The shattering of your worldviews as you realized the world was much more boring than you thought it was.
Yeah. More
C'est la vie.
I just now suddenly remembered yet another immersion breaking moment. The fishing pole.
Oh yeah,
that's-
that was weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go out to fish. So you go out to the lake and you can't fish.
Right.
It's like, what?
I just ended up putting it away and it never came into play again. I was like, alright, whatever.
Incidentally, at that time, you also could not climb any of the rat holes, I found out. So, like, I was thinking, okay, I have a fishing rod. That's one more thing I can stack on top of the turtle. And it didn't let me.
Bummer.
That turtle deserves everything.
Did you guys take the turtle with you when you were escaping the fire?
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This vegan did not leave the turtle behind.
Good.
Yeah. Oh my god, take the turtle. Unfortunately, in the transitions, we didn't have the turtle, but we did the best we could. Okay.
Well, no turtles was left behind in our playthrough.
Well, that means the turtle's somewhere.
Turtle and raccoon.
And raccoon. Well, I care less about that.
Raccoon probably ran away. He was fast enough.
And the bee definitely deserved it.
Well,
He got
the bee
worked.
probably died.
Yeah,
They die from
I know.
losing their stingers, yeah.
Unless it was a wasp.
Oh, yeah, I guess it depends what kind of bee it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is getting late. I think we've had a good discussion, so if you don't mind, I'm going to force us to wrap it up.
Alright, cool. So, thoughts?
So,
Sounds good.
Are there any final thoughts? We'll just go in a quick circle. Like,
Okay.
very final thoughts.
I'm really glad we did this and talked about it because I really had there were really good perspectives. It was a lot of fun. When I played it, I was more focused on the fact that I wasn't like doing it right and I had an audience, so it was nice to just think about it and analyze it a little bit more and discuss it a bit. And also, I probably should play it again just so I can find the raccoon and the turtle. Gotta find the animals.
I mean, without a question, I think that it is a very interesting game. It wouldn't be nearly as interesting with its limited scope. It wouldn't be nearly as interesting if it hasn't been actually as limited as it was and railroaded in the way that it was created in. Like I said, I'm often conflicted in a lot of how I feel about the game. How it gives you these opportunities to let you meander quite significantly, but none of those meandering amounts to anything significant, which I feel like I'm not entirely sure if that should feel rewarding or not. Like, it certainly wasn't the focus of the game, but it certainly also feels disappointing that they added so many of these sort of hidden details, and yet nothing amounts to collecting those information. It does flesh out a few characters, Delilah in particular, but it doesn't do anything else. So I do think that in a lot of ways the game was a missed opportunity in some much more clever and interesting designs that could have happened.
So, like I said, I went into it with absolutely no expectations because I knew nothing of the game, and I kind of liked what it ended up turning out to be. The graphics were, like I said, a lot better than the screenshot that I saw. I spent a great deal of time in vain trying to get it to show up in 3D on my 3D TV. Didn't work, and I think it would have looked amazing if they had a VR add-on, but that's just wishful thinking there. But what it ended up turning out to do was pretty good. I very much enjoyed the dialogue between the two characters. It felt very natural, just like two, friends. It never felt forced. It felt like just two friends talking, and it was humorous and colorful. And so I thought that part of the writing was really good, even if the actual plot itself, with the villain who kind of like stays hidden until the Deus Ex moment. It's just, I don't know. I thought it was a good thing to experience, but I can't see myself walking that path again.
I don't know. How about watching that path again?
Well, I feel like I would get the exact same thing the second time around. That's kind of the problem.
Sorry, I asked that in curiosity.
The game is very, very interesting to me. I feel like I've only scratched the surface. I think there's a lot that I haven't seen necessarily. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I feel like there's a lot going on in terms of story and plot threads where if you've been paying super close attention, we're getting hyped and nervous about every single bit of evidence that came your way, like I was. You had a much better time because there was just torrents of information and possibilities, and it was infinitely more exciting and interesting and scary. But I like the game quite a bit. I wish there could have been some actual person-to-person encounters, and I wish some of my decisions had more impact. What I was really excited about in the beginning with establishing Henry's backstory is I thought depending on how you answered the questions, you'd set up a completely different character going into the story, and that would change all the themes and the issues you were presented with. But no, I guess it's all, no matter what you do, you're going to be old Henry with his dementia adult wife and his dog that eventually dies, and your in-laws from Australia that don't like you, and it just would have been so much more interesting if, depending upon your responses, you could have played a college-age kid who was coming out of a failed relationship or something, or I don't know. That's just my idea, though. That doesn't have much to do with anything. But yeah, I like the game. I'm gonna replay it, or at least I'm gonna finish watching Markiplier play it at least. And I'm gonna go and play through it a few times, just at least to take really good photos. I want to take lots of cool photos.
I think I still have positive and negative feelings about it, but I thought it was really pretty, and I wouldn't mind looking at it more, but I don't think I want to play it again because I'm already playing life.
I guess for me, it could have. I don't know. I've had a lot of ups and downs, I think, of my opinion of it, especially during the course of this conversation. I think overall, it could have been, for me, I think it could have been a lot better than it actually was, and I don't know. They could have done some things a little bit better to make it work in my eyes, but I think overall, I'm glad that it's out there and they did something different than everyone else.
Yeah,
to a degree.
I have mixed feelings about it still. I wish they would make a whole game that was kind of like the beginning. I know that sounds like an absolute trudge, probably, but I think, Campo Santo, the developers and writers here, they have a lot of talent as writers and game developers, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next, and I just hope that they take a close look at what was really effective here and just kind of trim away some of the dross that we've discussed for next time. And yeah, I'll definitely be playing whatever they make next.
So I liked it for what it was, which was just really an interactive story. It was like reading a book if I was playing it. Things my wife knows, she makes. What do you make?
Visual novels.
Visual novels. It's a very pretty visual novel.
With
sorry.
walking, I don't have walking.
You don't have walking. Anyway, sorry, I'm tired. But I liked it for what it was. But I think that, as we've spoken about, there's a lot of potential to grow it into something else. It's like it's an interactive story, it's great, but it's on the cusp of doing something really interesting. And I would like to see it make that attempt, even if it doesn't go that way. Alternatively, if they could just make it a hiking simulator, I'd go with that. That's kind of what I was hoping would be, but when I got interactive story, I was okay, that's great. I'm good with that. But
well, I mean, the game does now have a hiking simulation mode on it.
Yeah.
yeah, no, but I mean like actual like not survival kind of game, but more than just walking around.
Okay.
Anyway, so everybody who's listened, thank you very much. Everybody who's here, thank you very, very much. This has actually been a fascinating conversation. I like talking about Firewatch. I honestly didn't think we were able to. I was worried we might not be able to prod a conversation going because it's not like it's there. We've all experienced it. It's great. But no, there's a lot to talk about. I'm glad you guys all brought your perspective to this. And hopefully, you guys enjoyed something of what you did. So,
Yeah.
So thank you. Do I need to say anything before I stop this?
No. You must watch the Firewatchers.
Oh yeah, who watches the Firewatch? We did, as we said in the beginning, we did record this, record ourselves playing this. It was live streamed as well. Go and watch that. Because it was much more interesting than any other live stream. Certainly.
Anyone has done ever. I don't want to sell this.
Hi, I'm Frederica, and I will be hosting the TVGS Game Club for April 2017. We will be discussing Don't Starve, which was released by Clay Entertainment, also known for Mark of the Ninja, Eats, Shank, and Invisible Ink. This game combines survival and roguelike elements, and was clearly inspired by Tim Burton. There are many expansions and DLCs, including Shipwrecked and the multiplayer version, Don't Starve Together. Please join us for this frustrating and twisted survival game.